Hello, my name is Christopher Thomson. My Genius Hour project is on music, technology, and education. The guiding question that informed my project this term has been, how can teachers use technology to make music education more relevant for students? This is a concern I have as I work with high school age music students at PIM Arts High School in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, which is a charter high school for performing arts. And we are pretty much creating our curriculum every term for the students, trying to have, we have a thread of continuity. We teach music theory, we teach ensemble classes, music and technology courses. Students do a lot of cross-art collaboration. So this guiding question is always on my mind, and I'm always looking for new ideas, new resources to help inform what I'm teaching. Why use technology to teach music? The arts are one of 9 fundamental subjects in the Partnership for 21st Century Learning Framework, P21. That was something that I discovered. I actually wasn't aware of the Partnership for 21st Century Learning until I read an article on popular music pedagogies with 3 different authors, one of which is a gentleman by the name of Brian Powell, who incidentally will be in Minnesota this summer doing a professional development conference at Winona State that I'm going to be trying to go to. When musicians learn music informally, they engage in a holistic process of listening, performing, improvising, and composing. This is from an article, Music and Formal Learning in the School, a New Classroom Pedagogy. This is a number of years ago, but I find this is extremely relevant right now, as what I'm seeing, at least in my neck of the woods at the charter high school that I'm at, is that the traditional approach to teaching just large ensemble classes, think of band, orchestra, or choir, those aren't landing as extremely relevant with our student population. We're unique. We tend to draw students that are looking for something different than the traditional high school experience. But if I walked in and tried to teach a standard orchestra class or a symphonic band, let's say, or even jazz big band for that matter, our students, we wouldn't have the critical mass of engagement and buy-in that we would need to see that succeed. So we have to really fold in these processes of listening, performing, improvising, and composing. We do this daily, or nearly daily, not always composing, but the other 3. How can teachers use technology to make music education more relevant for students? I'm highlighting the 3 or 4 ideas that are the main takeaways from the sources I've been reading this term. Something called popular music pedagogies, which is, again, I've been finding a lot of these in the Journal of Music Teacher Education and the Music Educators Journal. There is a lot of writing about this, and this has to do with the very thing I was just talking about, how we can do more than just teach symphonic band. We can try to present students music that is similar to what they're listening to and perhaps even creating outside of school. We try to bring those interests into the classroom and still deliver some of the content and of course meet the art standards that we need to meet in our teaching, but through this popular music pedagogy, some of these ideas. Learning and innovation skills like critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, communication, collaboration are taught through the PMPs, popular music pedagogies, as well as using technology. Learning about composing and arranging music with digital audio workstations. I'll refer to those as DAWs, the acronym for that. Those are things like Logic Pro, Ableton Live, FL Studio, GarageBand, all these different software versions. And of course, you can use iPads and laptops with software as musical instruments in their own right. Popular music pedagogies. The definition I borrowed from one of the sources cited here: design, practices, methods, and approaches to the learning of the practice of popular music. I think fairly self-explanatory, but a very powerful framework that we can use as we're trying to find new ways to teach students in a relevant way. PMPs help develop social and cross-cultural skills in popular music ensembles. When a group of musicians learn to listen to each other and handle diverse views and ideas, as well as increase motivation to complete high-quality work. I see this in my students. We do a lot with small ensemble where we have 4 or 5 students doing collaborative work together. I give specific assignments, talk about the process, demonstrate with maybe one of the student ensembles, and then sometimes we're all together in one room as a large group, and sometimes we have maybe 2, 3, or if the class is quite large, maybe 4 different small ensembles, in some of them practice room, and then we rotate through in the classroom, and I kind of guide them in the process. But I see terrific collaboration. Music students use DAWs to collaborate, remix, and create original work. You can teach improvisation, and that is something that is quite powerful. Even if the student isn't very skilled on their instrument yet, there are just a few things they can learn with virtual instruments, software instruments they're called in Logic, where you can put in MIDI effects. There are terrific ways you can show students how to make sound and music that it doesn't require them to know how to. Don't need to start piano lessons 8 years ago in order to do this. It's really exciting. Also, there are some amazing interactive web-based apps. One created by Ableton is I'm linking here. Teach synthesis with learning synths, and then you can transform from performers to composers. And this is one of the things that's really exciting when I teach my music and technology classes. I can turn musicians or music students, kind of get them to start to shift themselves into what we think of as hybrid musicians, which is like, or hyphenated musicians is what I've been reading about in my article research, this term. And that's where you're doing performer composer or performer arranger or performer producer. And that's really relevant when you get outside of school. That's a lot of what's happening in the music world is this hyphenated musicianship. Another thing cited in Seth Pendergast's article, Creative Music Making with Digital Audio Workstations, DAWs, from the Music Educators Journal. This just was published in December of 2021. He cites this as a really great model, Webster's model of creative thinking in music. And this is great to consider in designing projects for music making and music technology, composition, songwriting, and modern band classes. This is not something I had been aware of, but I just love the flow of this. I'm still kind of getting my head wrapped around how I would present this to students, but it's a really cool framework for how I might approach designing a project. Another thing I read in my sources is the idea of not necessarily being the band director per se, or the person in front leading the musicians, dictating what they're doing at every step of the process, but the idea of producing producers. Music teachers can think of themselves as producers and meet the goals of art standards. There are obviously a bunch of art standards. 2 that I've alluded to here come from the National Core Arts Anchor Standards. The first one, generate and conceptualize artistic ideas and work. Offshoot of that, generative material as part of the creative process, and practice being creative without needing to produce a finished product. Another arts anchor standard, organize and develop artistic ideas and work, which you can student-centered and facilitated by teacher. That process is quite powerful. That's a lot of what I'm doing in ensemble classes, as well as the music and technology. If too overwhelming, teachers can provide limiting parameters. So sometimes things get too choice paralysis. You have so many options. How do I even begin? So sometimes limiting them or kind of prescribing which direction to go can be very helpful. This is another source. I'm going to be picking this up. I found this in my reading and my research, the Music Technology Cookbook. What appeals about this is I saw a couple sample lessons online, but it's got 56 different lessons by 49 music technology experts from around the world. So there are a lot of different minds presenting ideas on how to use music technology in the classroom. So I'm going to be picking this source up. In terms of my slide presentation, that's everything I've got. I have my Genius Hour project site linked on the last slide. The main thing that I'm really proud of is assembling some of the curriculum ideas here. Seth Pendergast was a big source. I found so many of his references in his articles. I've picked about 5 or 6 here that are very compelling, really, really interesting. So I've been kind of just starting to peripherally look at those. These are a bunch of really great, just kind of a nice printout from his table from one of his articles. That's Webster's model. This is a wonderful YouTube conversation that Ableton did in 2019 on music education technology. Fascinating read. Then I link a bunch of different concepts that I can use, curriculum ideas, things that I could use in the classroom, the music and technology classroom. Some of these I talked about in the slide presentation, but these are links to where some of the sources are for that. The Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, amazing online, all kinds of great things, sample lessons and online courses that you can take, samples from. This is a thing called Musical Futures that I found in some of my research. A really, really cool way of using popular music and bringing popular music ideas into the classroom. Another great art standards rubric that I really, really enjoyed. I'll be kind of borrowing ideas from this in some of my future rubrics that I create. Again, here's Music Technology Cookbook. And I'm excited. This is a really great process. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface on, but I enjoyed tremendously the Genius Hour project. I hope you enjoy my presentation.